What's up, Movie Trivia Schmoedown fan of the broadcast today? We have to do something very special. Something that should have been done last week. Now, Frank Janisch, I want to apologize for just walking out on the show in the fashion that I did. But I had time to reflect. I had time to think about it. And we're both gentlemen here. We're both respectful of one another for the most part. So I wanted to get you a gift. And so I sent you a little text.
Yeah.
I said, Jinga Janisch, what's your address? You sent me your address, and I sent you a gift. Now, I said, do not open the gift, though, until it's time to record the show.
Right.
So what I want to do right now on the episode of the Schmoedown, I want Frank Jinga Janisch to hold up the package that was sent to him. Can you hold it up for the people at home?
There it is.
All right, there it is. There
Put
it is
that
right
Prime
there.
membership
Now,
to
he
the
has not
use.
opened it. Yes,
No.
he has not opened it. He has no idea what it is. Okay? So what I'm going to ask you to do right now, Frank,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to open the package. Open it for the people at home. Open it. As he tears through it, nice sound effects for the people at home. He's opening it.
Yeah.
He is not looking down yet. He's
Not.
reaching into the packaging. Now there might be more than one. Not really sure. Let's see what's in it first. Look, go ahead.
Oh.
Now what is that, Frank? Why don't you show that to the people at home?
This is a dry erase board. It's a dry erase board.
That's a dry erase board. It's funny because it happens to match my dry erase board. So Championship week, it's time we settle this like men. I am challenging you, Frank Janisch, to the Rundown Schmoedown next week. You and I, and we're gonna crown the Rundown champion of the world. We're settling our differences like men, Janisch. You and I.
How much is it gonna cost you to ship that to me? That belt to me? Jeez, I can't imagine the cost.
It's staying right here in Houston, Texas. Accept the challenge, Frank Janisch.
Oh, it's accepted. It's been accepted.
It's accepted. It's on.
Yeah. What else is in here?
Next week, you and I, the Rundown Schmoedown.
Wait a minute.
Also got you an actual gift.
The complete animated series. I mean, wow.
Yes.
Wow. I just might let you win next week. I'll let you win for this. Yeah.
The complete animated series of Back to the Future. So next week, Frank Janisch, Brad Gilmore. The questions will be administered by Chris Clark. It's the Rundown Schmoedown, and it's next week. But now, let's get to the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Schmoedown Rundown. Introducing first, Frankie Janisch, and the host of the Schmoedown Rundown, Brad Gilmore.
What's up, Movie Trivia Schmoedown fans? Welcome to the Schmoedown Rundown, the official after show for the Movie Trivia Schmoedown. I'm your host, Brad Gilmore, and I am joined, surprisingly, this week by Frank Jinga Janisch.
Surprisingly, well, I don't know what that's about. I thought we squashed this, Brad, but all right.
We're gonna settle it. We're gonna settle it next week. The Rundown Schmoedown, first time ever. We're crowning a champion. But also joining us on the show is a man who is going to be a champion in this league. He had a big match this week, a match that was highly anticipated, that all of us Schmoedown fans have been looking forward to for a long time. He joins us on the show. He is the Beast, William Bibbiani. What's going on, Beast?
Hi.
How are you, man?
Been a rough week. Been a rough one. Not doing so great.
We'll get through it. We'll get through it. We'll get through it together.
Thanks, friend.
At least nobody crapped on your bed. We have a great show for you.
Never explain that.
I'm not.
Never explain it. We'll let him wonder.
Let him wonder.
Yeah.
Theater of the mind. We have a great show for you this week. We had 3 matches this week, but before we get to any of it, there was some news dropped, a little bit of news dropped by Christian Harloff, the real commissioner of the Schmoedown. A list.
Yeah, so we know that title week is next week with Patriots Top 10. You got Levine and Rachel Cushing. And then we have another Inner Geekdom Fatal 5-way, or not a Fatal 5, which is the 5-way qualifier. That's already been listed. But then we got official dates for Ben Bateman and Dale the Dude. That's happening March 16th. And then on March 20th, we got Shirewolves versus, it doesn't say Dagnino Knapsack. It just says Lions Den. So keep your ear to the ground, whatever that saying is, to see whatever shenanigans goes on with the Lions Den. And then you got Irwin versus Machado, a couple new people in the Schmoedown this year. And then we have the live events that will be then on Collider March 27th and March 30th. That's Wild Berries versus Real Rejects on the 27th, and the JTE Roca match that'll be up on March 30th. So the one that I was really excited about to hear and see on the schedule was Ben Bateman versus Dale the Dude. I was there in the room at the table when that deal went down. We tweeted out pictures, we posted pictures about that happening. It was all over social media when that went down. Guys, what do we think? Ben Bateman taking on another newbie in Dale the Dude. He's done it against Late to the Party. Now here he is again with Dale the Dude. Is this his thing? The new people?
I think everyone's got to have something. And if I think picking on the new guy is what Ben Bateman wants to be known for, I guess that's one way to go. We're seeing a lot of that this season. We got Lon Harris coming in, not even trying to get a belt, just trying to like snipe everyone like at the lowest end. It's like he's smurfing in gaming, just trying to just walk through all of the lower ranked players to make himself feel like a big man. So like if this is what Ben Bateman does, fine. But I'll tell you something. This is the thing with all of these like new players. I see a lot of controversy about the new players. Oh, there's so many new players. Someone's going to surprise you. You know, for everyone out there who shows a lot of promise, but maybe is new to the game, or maybe isn't as good as trivia as someone else. Maybe he's just fun out there. There's gonna be someone out there. There's gonna be another Rachel Cushing out there. There's gonna be another someone out there who's gonna go, holy wow, we got to watch out for them. And if Ben Bateman wants to be our canary in the coal mine, so be it.
Have you noticed anyone out there that kind of from the new people so far that kind of raises an eyebrow for you?
The Machine is someone I'm keeping an eye on right now. All of the sort of hiccups in her first match were mostly just seemed like being new to the game, being new to the environment. You're doing it all in public. It is unusual and might take a little bit of getting used to, but she clearly had the knowledge. And I would not discount her in anything moving forward. But so far I don't think I've seen anyone who's just like, oh, we got a new Dan Morrill. We're all screwed. I might as well quit now, that kind of thing. Not yet. But, again, not everyone's first match is going to be a barn burner. And even if, you come in your first match, you get every question right, you really knock everyone's socks off, you can't end up with a really crappy record in the Schmoedown overall.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I hadn't thought of that. I'm excited, though, Frank, when we talk about the matches coming up. I mean, Shirewolves and the Lions Den. This has to be one of the most anticipated team debuts in Schmoedown history. Bibbs, when you found out about the Shirewolves, Clark Wolf and Rachel, what was your initial reaction to that?
My first reaction was, well, obviously. You got to think about Rachel and Ken. They were fun together, but it really did feel like, with the exception maybe of Star Wars questions, which Rachel knows too, Ken really wasn't bringing as much to that team as Rachel was. They didn't really complement each other. It was Rachel Cushing and Ken. Clark Wolf knows her stuff as well. She is a very fierce competitor. She's a very realistic competitor in pretty much any field. So it's really not about anyone carrying each other in the Shirewolves. It's basically just we have two people, at least one of whom is a total juggernaut, but both of them are super talented. And they're just there. They're going to rack up the points. That's it. The first rounds, I expect, coming from Shirewolves are probably going to be huge, and they're going to put everyone massively on the defensive throughout the entire game. I cannot wait to see what they do. I do not want to build them up too much, but we've seen what they can do in singles and in other team matches. We know that they're talented. It's not unreasonable to expect that they're going to do very well.
Yeah. I mean, I think also when it comes to the Shirewolves, Frank Janisch, anything else on that schedule that stands out to you? I mean, we got championship next week. I'm gonna lay up the smack down on you in the rundown Schmoedown next week. But what else? What else stands out to you?
I'm interested in seeing these new people, Erwin and Machado. I don't know anything about them yet. And we're going to get into a couple of new teams here that I didn't really know anything about. And I liked what I saw. So I think it's going to be more of the same when we see Erwin and Machado do battle on March 23rd. So I always look forward to new people. And obviously, I can't wait to see. We're going to see it in the live event, Wildberries, Real Rejects, JT Roca. But I can't wait to see that actually on. Yes, I can't wait to see that actually on video, how everything comes out. Just so it's the first live event. I don't know how they're going to situate everything. So it's gonna be very interesting how they shoot it, how they, put it all together, considering it's the first live event. So I'm interested in seeing how that all comes together when it's put up on Collider finally at the end of the month.
Yeah, Beast, the live show is just right around the corner. What do you think's going to be the differences and the biggest things they're going to have to adapt to?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see the live audience because I'm not sure. This is our first one. So there's going to be a lot of things that can go wrong. There's a lot of really unexpected things that can go extremely right. The live show is going to depend, I think it's going to depend on the announcers more than anyone else. If you want to look at it from a show personship perspective, what you got is, the Schmoedown is pretty finely tuned right now. They don't have a lot of new competitors coming in for the live show. These are people who know the show, who know the format. They're going to be able to play on through. But anything that happens, any mild technical glitch that can create a 10-second delay or something, that's the sort of thing you can edit out in a Schmoedown match. Here, anything that happens, any yelling from the audience, any microphone issue, anything at all, it's going to depend on crowd control. How can we maintain the crowd? And they got really good people who are going to be playing at that live show, people who are talented on the stage, people who can keep it fun. That's the thing. The Schmoedown is twofold. It has to be an entertaining show, and it has to be about the movie trivia. The movie trivia just boils down to Scaliti and everyone just making sure the questions are fine and making sure that they're going to be tough for the competitors. Everything else is just going to be, let's put on a show. I'm excited to see that show. I'm hoping to be there myself. Obviously, just as a fan, I'm not going to just rush the stage, shove Roca out of the way as much as I'm tempted to. But yeah, it's going to be real fun to see how it comes out.
Christian's listening.
Well, we'll see. But I just think it's a matter of everyone's just got to be there to be on stage and help the crowd, because a lot of that crowd is going to be there because they're Schmoedown fans. It's going to be interesting to see if there are people who are there who are not Schmoedown fans and just thought it sounded neat, and then we have to sort of get them on board for the first time. I think that's exciting as well. That's the part of the fun of doing new kinds of content, new kind of Schmoedown, is it invites new people into the fold and gets new people excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what we're all looking forward to, the live element of the Movie Trivia Schmoedown. We don't know what's going to happen. And, there's an old saying in the pro wrestling business, nothing can go wrong if it's live. So we'll see what happens. I think, though, when you talk about new blood, you talk about new competitors, we had some new competitors here this week in the Movie Trivia Schmoedown. We had the debut of two new teams. We had the Kingsmen taking on World's Finest. Frank, I'm going to throw it to you. Did you have any insight, any background information on these guys before their debuts?
Not a thing. Yeah. I barely found out who these guys were the night before the match. I found their Twitters and kind of scrolled through some of the stuff, just kind of maybe get a feel for what their personalities are like.
I didn't know any of the individuals involved in the team match. So this was exciting for me. I was actually in the audience for this one, and I got to sort of hang out with them a little bit beforehand, and they were just really, really fun people. And I had no idea what their movie trivia knowledge was, but I knew before the show began that they were going to bring a lot of energy to it. And that, I think, was the real charm of this match. They were fun. They were all very fun. They were having a good time, even when, by all rights, they should have been having a very bad time.
yeah, at times, yes.
At times they had a pretty rough time, but I think this is why the movie Trivia Schmoedown continues to grow, not only implementing new teams and new faces, but giving us different flavors of matches. I mean, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the show. Not every match can be, a big pay-per-view style match like Bibbiani versus The Godfather. There's not every match like that. Sometimes we're going to get the matches like the Kingsmen and the World's Finest, or every time I see the Wildberries, I know I'm going to smile and enjoy it. And we're going to get to Josh Macuga here in just a minute, because Josh Macuga was always entertaining with Nick Scarpino. But this is kind of like, back in the WCW days, they used to put the cruiserweight wrestlers on first, and that was just for the crowd, just to see guys do flips. And I think, sometimes, go ahead.
No, it's fine. I was going to agree with you. I just think that the strength of any show in the long haul, any show that lasts a really long time, whether it's hopefully the Schmoedown or the Simpsons or the X-Files or whatever, what they have built into them is an inherent capacity to handle a variety of different types of stories. You can have funny ones, you can have serious ones, you can have huge events, you can have little tiny ones, you can have jokes, you can have melodrama. The Schmoedown is great because it can be like this sort of really intense trivia kind of deal. It can also just be a fun time hanging out with people who love movies, getting to know new personalities around the internet. All types of things are possible, and this was just one of the many types of Schmoedown episodes we've seen.
Yeah, Frank, what did you think, just overall, before we break it down round by round, like kind of your overall feel of it?
Yeah, the whole match as a whole was
the whole match
very
as a whole?
Yeah. I was
just making sure that's what you said.
No, I heard it too.
Don't get tongue-tied next week for the Rundown Schmoedown.
That's why we got the whiteboards. Anyways, I thought they had great energy. Bibbs was right. They brought a great energy. They were very fun. Some of the down moments, they were able to liven it up with their personalities. When they made some ridiculous guesses, it was entertaining, and I appreciate that. It wasn't just like kind of just like a bore, just like, oh my gosh, just let's hurry up and get through this. I was actually kind of curious as to if they got something wrong, how would they play it up? How would they joke about it? And I thought they did a great job with that, all of them. This is one of the reasons I like seeing new players, just because I don't know what to expect. And the energy that we typically get from these kinds of players and performances is something that I enjoy from time to time. I mean, because you're right, not everything can be, a title match. It can't be, like you said, a Bibbiani McWeenie match. It can't be a Roca JTE match. We don't have 40 of those people lying around, because if we did, that would be amazing. But still, I mean. But this is why the diversity in terms of the matches that we get is what makes the Schmoedown special and continues to go on.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think you hit on them there, because I know I complained, I think last week, about like the writing of the funny answer when you don't know the answer. Yeah. But I actually, in this match in particular, I did enjoy that, just because of the charisma and the enthusiasm these guys had playing the game. I knew some of these questions they weren't going to know the answer to, but you're right. Like, I was still engaged the whole time. It was almost like I don't know. I'm trying to think of a great analogy for it, like a slow bicycle race. You weren't going to see who was going to get there first. You're just like, you know what I mean? It's just like you're staring, you're intense. You just want to know what's going to happen next. And so, yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I like matches like this. You had Jack and Devin, which were the Kingsmen, and you had Winston and Eric, which were World's Finest. I guess let's get into round number one. Oh, actually, before we do that, their characters, their promos, their entrances. Bibbs, anything that stuck out to you? You're a guy who's definitely known for your entrance. We're going to get into maybe the greatest entrance of all time later in the show. But what do you think overall of their presentation from a character standpoint?
Well, look, from a character standpoint, I'm going to say, like, throughout the episode, they actually kept their characters very fun, and that's a lot of the fun of this episode. You've got the gravel-voiced Batman throughout the entire episode. You have the incredibly cocky, like, British version of Whitney Seibold, like. And I love him because anytime he got an answer wrong, he was so confident about that wrong answer that it just made it unbelievable to watch. It was really, really great. So from a character perspective, they're great. But man, I gotta tell you, this season, people have got to step up their entrance game. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, and we'll talk about it later, I really wanted to go completely insane with mine, because almost all of the entrances I've seen so far this season are people coming out to music. Yeah. That's fine. It's okay. Not everyone needs to be the greatest showman, but you put a little effort into it. You build up the crowd. You make a real splash. I think that's like kind of the gift of the Schmoedown is it's not just a game of criticism. It's not a game of movie trivia. It's an opportunity to put on a show, to go really nuts. And I want to see more of that. I think that's something that if these new competitors want to make an impression, one of the best things they can do is work on their intros, because right now they're just walking to their chairs.
You're right. And a lot of the times, I mean, and this goes with the Schmoedown as well as in pro wrestling, like an audience member or a viewer of the show can buy into you, root for you, and always want to see you just based on that entrance. And it is a very important thing. It's you don't want to always come out and be, generic guy with the Rock theme raising your hands up. Sometimes you want to have the, if you smell what the Rock is cooking at the top and you have your strut, your entrance gear, whatever. And, obviously William Bibbiani, one of the greatest entrances of all time, always one of the, and that means overall, not just in the match this week, overall, always entertaining entrances. And so what did you think, Frank, of their overall presentation, promo, entrance?
Yeah, Bibbiani laid it out pretty well. We got this Batman voice, and we got the British guy, and just like the Kingsmen really just caught my eye. Cause just like this I don't know, bravado they kind of had with them, this weird swagger of like, where the hell did this even come from? You guys are brand new. Are you actually good or not? I don't know, but you give off, the impression that you might be, and then we later found out Jack isn't really up to snuff, but that's another. We'll get there.
Not the best, but we'll get there. Yeah.
But I was very interested to see how it would translate into the match itself. If they would stick with these characters, because so many times we see people in their intros play this character and they do it in the entrance, and then it's their normal self answering the questions, and then if they win or lose, it depends. So, but they were throughout, and that was interesting, and that's not. I can't imagine that's an easy thing to do, especially when you're not playing that great for some of them. So kudos to them for that. But I right off the bat, I really liked what they were bringing to the table.
This is why I think personality is like so important. I think it may be the most important thing in the Schmoedown. You look at someone like Macuga, who does, but he's not like super amazing at it. But you always want to see his matches because of that energy. Movie trivia is something that can be learned. That kind of personality, like you really only get so many chances to make a big impression. So like JTE had like that terrible run a couple of years ago. He trained. He started watching movies he hadn't seen. He started studying, and now he's one of the most formidable players in the game. So yeah, movie trivia knowledge is awesome, but when you're new, make a splash. And the Kingsmen, I wish they'd gone a little bit further with their intro, but when it comes to their personalities and World's Finest too, I want to see more of them. I want to see him get even better.
And I kind of liken that to, I look at Rachel Cushing. We know she's super good at trivia, and she was a little timid at first, but as the season went on last year, we saw her play more and more with the entrances and Terminator, Lord of the Rings, all that stuff, and she's crushing things, and she's more lively in the entrances. So I think perhaps over the course of the season, if they continue to show up, their entrance game will step up. But I think also you're right that if you come out with a bang already, that's a huge impression. Because the one that comes to mind, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, but your very first entrance, I had no idea who you were, Bibbiani, and you came out like a bat out of hell, and I loved it. Like a bat out of hell, I be gone when the morning comes. When the night is over, like a bat out of hell, I be gone, gone, gone. Like a bat out of hell, I be gone when the morning comes. When the day is done and the sun goes down, moonlight shining down. Like a sinner before the gates of heaven, I'll come crawling on back to you. I was like, this guy is insane. He's amazing. And then you went and had a perfect match. I was like, holy shit, this could change everything. So,
well, I set the bar too high to begin with. That's actually the point, though. I didn't have anywhere to grow. I had nowhere to go, but from that match. That was actually like kind of poor planning on my part. Rachel is another great example of someone whose first match or two. You're right. She stepped up her game when it came to presentation, but she was so good at trivia that also made a splash. You just want to make that big impression. If you want your big impression to be, I know a ton of trivia, that works too. But a lot of that, you know what? Even Rachel's missed a couple of questions here and there. So part of it does boil down to a little bit of luck. And did you get questions about movies you've seen?
Sure.
So presentation is something that it's in your control. You can't always. Everyone loses a match once in a while. Even Merle lost a match eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all a matter of you can control your presentation, you can control your character. You should control it as much as you can and make it your own and make it big.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you talk about character and coming out and connecting with people, I think the Kingsmen definitely did that. And Frank, I agree with your assessment of them, especially with Jack. I think the Kingsmen might need to change their name to Irrational Confidence because that's kind of what they exuded. There was the old thing about, I'm trying to remember the basketball player who he could never hit a three, but he would always take the shot from the 3-point line because he thought he could. And, and they described him as having irrational confidence. And that's kind of what I got from Jack and from the guys in the Kingsmen. It's just like, we've never seen them before. We have no idea their skill level, but for some reason they have this supreme level of confidence in themselves. And that translates over, especially when you're trying to play more the heel side of things. You have to have that irrational confidence. And that's what, makes you good, is when you think you're the best, but you're not, but you still proclaim to be. It's always entertaining. So why don't we get into it? Let's get into round number one. Round number one ended with World's Finest up 11-8. Jack only scoring 2 points in the round. Devin definitely carried the load there with 6 points out of a possible 8. Frank, your assessment of round number one.
Yeah, for the Kingsmen, Jack starting off 0 for 5. Not great overall through those first 5 days. Just had 3 points between both of them. That's pretty bad. So it's interesting too, because when you have a bad first round, it usually carries, on throughout the rest of the match, not in a good way. So I didn't know how, with World's Finest also being new, I didn't know if that was going to stay true. But then we got with World's Finest, Eric and Winston. Eric, man, he's the one who impressed me the most because he got 7 points. He missed the first one and then rattled out the other 7. And so I don't want to say he carried World's Finest because Winston wasn't bad. He had 4. The league average is about 5 in the first round. So, and it's his first match, and that's fine. And I think he missed a couple that he probably knew that he wants back. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good first round between both teams in terms of competitiveness, because it was kind of back and forth. Someone would miss, and then they would all miss or hit. So it was up and down. But Eric was the one constant, and Kingsmen, their irrational confidence somehow carried them to 8 points, and they're only down by 3 here. So that's
down by with one player going 0 for 5, being down by 3 going into round 2 isn't a terrible spot. William Bibbiani, the man who scored perfectly on his debut in the Schmoedown in the first round. What was your assessment of round number one for these two new teams?
Look, I look at the sort of the different rounds of the Schmoedown like this. The first round, you should be able to get most of the answers right if you've seen the trailer for the movie once. The second round, if you've seen the movie in the last 5 or 10 years, you should be able to about get it right. I think that's where a lot of the difficulty. And then in the third round, it boils down to, have you seen it in the last year, or do you know it inside and out? So you're right when it comes down to, if your first round is bad, it doesn't bode well. Now, everyone can have a bad first round once in a while, but it's not encouraging if the easy, just sort of glossy who starred in what movie questions are laying you flat. So that was a real barn burner. But what was good is that at the very least, the two teams were pretty evenly matched. You're right. A 3-point deficit at the end of round 1, that's not insurmountable. You're just like 1 or 2 missed questions away in round 2 and 3 from getting tied or getting on top again. So it was still a very entertaining match.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, just all you got to do, and I like your assessment of that. So round 1, is if you've seen the trailer. Round 2 is if you've seen the movie in the last 5, 10 years, right? And then the round number 3 is if you've seen it in the last year or you've know it inside and out. That's interesting. I'm gonna actually look at that. I'm gonna look at it with some rose-colored glasses next time and see if I pick up on that. I have never heard anyone describe it like that. I always kind of think round number 1 is to try to get as many points as you can. So in round number 2, in case you get that bad category spin or you get opponent's choice, you still have an opportunity to come back in round number 3. Let's get into round number 2, though. Frank, when we talk about spins, who's now World's Finest spun first this time, right?
Yeah.
Yes, World's Finest spun first, and then they landed on Pixar.
Yeah.
And they decided to keep it. Pixar, people typically, you're the stat man. People typically do well or not so well in Pixar.
For Pixar specifically,
yes, look up that stat.
Yep. Computing. Pixar. People are all right in Pixar. But just because there's a limited amount of films that Pixar has done, so it's not as vast as, say, the animated category,
now,
where it covers a bunch of studios.
What unit of measurement is all right? I just want to know mathematically. Where I've never.
Man, we have some awesome sound effects on this show, I gotta say. Spared no expense.
No. But typically, I said, but typically Pixar is, I think people typically do well in it, right? I mean, in case you haven't seen The Good Dinosaur, but typically people are pretty familiar with Pixar.
Right, and we heard that from Winston in the post-match. He's like, I've seen all these movies, Dinosaur, and I don't blame him. I haven't seen it either.
It's not very good.
That's what I hear as well.
It's not very memorable.
Yeah. So for them, and if you're gonna go with Pixar and it's on your first spin, you got to feel pretty good about your knowledge in general with Pixar. I mean, now I know they're new to the game, so maybe they weren't really eyeing the rest of the wheel. They just kind of focused. They landed on Pixar. Is that something they feel like they're good at? I don't know if that was their thought process, being a new team, but they went with Pixar, and they went 5 out of 6. So that's a pretty good round. They did go to multiple choice 4 times. So, it seems like they knew it, but weren't quite sure. So they went to multiple choice a couple times. And so when I see them do that, I think they do have kind of an advantage here, maybe going forward in the future, because a lot of people stay away from animated or Pixar. And that's something that they could use to their advantage in future matches down the line. So I like the way they played this round and that they actually did, take it on the first spin. That showed a lot of confidence to me.
No, definitely. I mean, when they saw Pixar, they're like, okay, yeah, let's go for it. So there wasn't a lot of hesitation there, like we will see with the next team. But Beast, Pixar, something that you thought would be. I mean, obviously we don't know a lot about these guys, but is that a category that when you see, you're like, okay, yeah, I'll do all right in that?
Well, okay, Pixar is. It's tricky. It's easy to think Pixar is going to be an easy category because there are only so many Pixar movies, and if you've been even casually watching movies for the last 20 years, there's a decent chance you've seen all or most of them. But that's a double-edged sword. Just because you've seen all the movies, that doesn't necessarily help you, because when there's only a limited pool of movies to choose from, there are only so many questions that they can ask about them. And as they ask more and more Pixar questions, they're going to run out. So like a question that's relatively straightforward, like what's the name of the daughter in The Incredibles, Violet, or her superhero name, Ultraviolet, fine. But then you can only use that once. Mm-hmm. And then you get more specific questions, which they're not unanswerable, but they will test your actual knowledge of it, what state that they move from in Inside Out. The one that I was actually like, I was sitting there and like, oh crap, I've seen all 3 of the Cars movies, in some cases multiple times. Oh. And for not necessarily my choice, but regardless, I could not remember the number on Lightning McQueen. It's on screen in almost every shot. And I could not remember it because it's so banal.
Right.
It didn't occur to me that was... What was the number again? What was it?
Like
99. 99, wasn't it?
Was it 99?
No, 98. 98, I think.
It's such a weird... Like, it's just such a kind of like a random number. Like, my first thought was like, oh, is it 53? But that was the number in Herbie the Love Bug. I thought maybe it was a Disney reference. So, yeah, it was just...
Or even the... What kind of candy distracted Heimlich in The Bug's Life?
Yeah, like that's the sort of question that, again, if you haven't seen it relatively recently, any candy you can put in your head and it makes sense in that scene. It's hard to guess that. You can just pick something out kind of at random.
I actually did guess candy corn, so I was pretty impressed with myself. Yeah,
there you go. But like I was thinking about that, I was like, oh crap, what kind of candy was it? It was a little hazy on it. I think I would have gotten candy corn. At least would have gotten it in multiple choice. But that's a little tricky, and that requires you to have seen the movie, and it's indicative of they have to get more specific the more often questions in Pixar are told. So Pixar, we equate Pixar and animation, and some people avoid them as a matter of course because they think, well, those are kids' movies. I don't watch those.
Yeah.
And first off, you're playing a movie trivia game, so you'd better watch those. And secondly, a lot of them are great, so you should be watching them anyway, I think, if you really care about cinema. So you shouldn't have that huge a gap in your knowledge if you're playing a movie trivia game.
And by the way, 95 was the answer. It was number 95. 95.
There you go.
But yeah, I agree with you. You know, and people don't think about after the question has been asked a couple times, and we talk about this a lot, Frank, with comic book movies. Like, it comes up so often, and people flock to it because they're like, "Oh, I know comic book movies," but you're not going to get, who directed Iron Man anymore. You're going to get, what was the drink that was sitting on the table, in Stark's lab when he decided to paint the suit red? And you're like, I mean, it's going to get more and more specific. That was a great point. And I hadn't thought about that for Pixar. And we did see some very specific questions when it came to Pixar. But like you said, Frank, they get 5 out of 6. They get some points on the board. I believe it's 18-9 after their turn, which is, that's a pretty big deficit right there. You're going to have to do really well in your category if you're the Kingsmen. And then they go up to spin, and they spin comedies, and there's a little bit of a discrepancy here. It's like, should we keep it? Yeah, let's keep it. Well, are you sure you want to keep it? Well, I don't know. Do you think you're pretty confident in it? Well, I think that I might be. Okay, let's keep it. Well, I told you we shouldn't keep it. I mean, that was kind of the direction of the.
I couldn't tell if that was character or if they were legitimately,
I think it was 100% legit. I think it was like, I don't know. Are you good at it? And you know what? And that comes also, I think, a little bit from being a new team. Yeah. You don't think maybe going in, hey, if we get comedy, like, are you good at comedy? Or, Pixar, is that something we should go with? Maybe they didn't have any sort of strategy session. I don't know typically if that's some teams do, but you would have to think that if you want to achieve success rather quickly in the Schmoedown, especially in your debut, you would say, hey, man, if we land on comic book movies, we're going for it. Or if we land on comedies, let's spin again. Maybe something like that. I mean, what do you think, Frank?
Yeah, I think it's imperative to at least look at that wheel before the match and kind of develop a game plan if you can, if you get there early enough, because I know some people got other things to do and they get there as soon as they can, and maybe they don't have a chance to look at the wheel. But if you have that chance to look at the wheel, and when I've been there, I've seen teams or players take a look at the wheel and kind of figure out what they want to do in certain situations. I think if you're right, it's chalk it up to them being a new team. They didn't really pay, maybe they didn't look at the wheel and give it that much attention, and didn't realize what they would do if they landed on certain categories, or if a team landed on opponent's choice, what would we give them? I think that's something that if you're going to be playing this league, that you would want to pay a little attention to, because that could be very advantageous, especially if you land on opponents. We just saw with Top That, they give top 10 biopics for A, because they don't watch the matches, and B, maybe they didn't look at the wheel as much as they should have, and did some homework that way. So I think it's a little bit of being new and maybe their character as well, just playing it up. So it was a fun little exchange.
So Beast, the first time that you go up in round number 2 to spin that wheel, did you have any strategy going into that, or were you just like, I'm spinning and whatever I get, I'll get? Or did you have a strategy?
The only thing I knew, and at least in singles, was when I got to spin that wheel, I was gonna sing the Wheel of Morality song from Animaniacs, and I did, and I kept it up for a while, and after a while, the jokes started running thin. But here's the thing: when you're an individual, it's a little easier because you simply know how confident you're feeling about the category, right? When you're talking with a team, especially in round 2, when you are going to be like collaborating with it, and if one person's strong and the other person feels terrible about it, you might not want to go with that. That's something to consider. You may also want to consider that one of the people on the Kingsmen did not have a good round 1. And so playing up to that person's confidence level might have been a wise move. So they were kind of checking with each other, engaging. Comedy does not have the same problems that like a Pixar has, where there are only so many. There are hundreds that come out every single year and have for about a century now. So there's a huge, vast swath. Maybe we can carry it. Maybe we'll feel pretty confident. And honestly, like, they did not do great, but like their questions were not insane. So they probably should have felt more confident than they were. But then again, maybe they were too confident given some of the answers they gave.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think you make a great point about the individual is definitely different than the team dynamic, because you got to be thinking. Because here's the thing is, and I guess this is maybe part of their quandary when they were up there. Maybe they were like, Jack thought, Devin was confident with comedy, so he was trying to egg him on and say, no, it's good. If you got it, let's go. And they didn't really, like I said, they just didn't have that strategy session. They didn't know, if I land on this, this is good. So it's just one of those things that they get caught up in it. And honestly, we saw they didn't do, Frank, they didn't do terrible, right? But they didn't do great.
Yeah, I mean, they only got half of their available points, 6 out of possible 12 in their round. They gave away 4 points, which was really the deciding factor.
That was the nail in the coffin. Yeah, when you give up those steals, it's a wrap.
Yeah, it's interesting too because they knew about the multiple choice. They went multiple choice on their first question, and then the second question they go for it and it doesn't work out. And then they get the next 2 right for a full 2 points. So and they took another shot and it didn't go their way, and that really burned them. And then it seems like they learned their lesson, because on the last one they went multiple choice and it worked out for them that way. But there's some growing pains here as a new team, and that's fine. But again, their personality and their fun with the game carried them through and made it more enjoyable. Because it's painful for me to watch 2 points being given up, because it's a very rare thing, especially with seasoned veterans of this game. Very rarely do you see 2 points in teams and or in singles. People give up 2 points, give 2-point opportunities at the very least to their opponent. So for it to happen twice here, that's pretty devastating. And then they're capitalized on. And
Yeah, so we saw at the end of the round, I believe it was 22-15, 7-point differential there in round 3. When it's that large of a gap, I'm not saying it's impossible. I don't know, Frank. Has anyone ever overcome 7 points before?
No, I think the max.
Hold on. Let's do some calculations.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I think 6 has been the most someone's overcome, and I think that was actually in the singles. That was when Cody Miller beat JTE. I think he overcame a 6-point deficit. I can't quite remember a big deficit for a team at the moment, but I can look that up. Yeah.
I want to come to the defense of the Kingsmen on one point. Say right now their market was catastrophically wrong in every conceivable way. I think they're clearly thinking of the wrong movie. But I've heard a lot of people say when they confidently yelled Cedric the Entertainer for the man of the house, everyone laughed. But here's the thing.
He was in the movie.
Cedric the Entertainer is in that movie. That's not as crazy. It's weird to confuse Cedric the Entertainer and Tommy Lee Jones. It's not super weird to think this person's in the movie. I'm forgetting what character they play.
Yeah.
That's not super crazy, and I want to give them a little credit for that. That was actually like not as far off as it might sound at a glance, provided you've actually seen Man of the House, which nobody recommends. Like, it's not. In fact, I can't think of a single movie named Man of the House that was actually like, even the Chevy Chase one. There really isn't.
David Thomas.
That's not recommended.
Neither of which were great. But I remember. I think Cedric the Entertainer played like some preacher who used to be.
I think he played a criminal in that one, didn't he? Didn't he play like a guy in like protection or something? Or
maybe.
I don't know. That's my point. It's been a long time. I haven't seen it in 10 years.
I do remember Christina Milian was in the movie, which I wasn't mad at. That's what I remember. She was a Texas cheerleader in the movie, and I'm from Texas, and
I got that stat for the biggest team deficit win. It was way back when Superhero News of Adam and Hector, they were taking on Trek, and Trek was down 15-10 after 2 rounds. They came back to win the game.
So a 5-point deficit
is the most anyone's ever come back from. Yeah.
So a 7-point, odds are not in their favor. Their first question was Leonardo DiCaprio, and it was, what is the first name of Leonardo DiCaprio's character in The Great Gatsby? I was guessing great on that one. I only saw that movie once, but no. Obviously,
that one also works if you've read a book.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like a book everyone's required to read in order to get out of high school. So you have like a double chance to know that. So I think that one wasn't so bad. That's a good 2-pointer.
Yeah, and of course they get it. And then they go into the second one, which was new releases. Who played Merlin in Transformers: The Last Night? And I believe was The Last Night. Was that
That's the most recent one.
That's the most recent garbage. Yes.
And here's the thing with that. That's actually a tough question because Merlin's 1.5 scenes, and he's under a ton of makeup. Like it's actually like I watched that scene and I'm like, is that? Why is Stanley? It took me a minute to realize that was Stanley Tucci. That's actually kind of a tough question because you have to have seen that movie.
Yeah,
like, you have to kind of know that one. You can't
just,
he's not in the trailer. It's really tough to see that movie.
Yes, that's why it's doubly hard.
That was my worst movie of the year.
Or if you recently watched Saturday Night Live and saw the Tucci Gang music video, they talk about Transformers: The Last Night a lot. And Tucci Gang, Tucci Gang, Tucci Gang, Tucci Gang. I don't know if anyone else saw that.
That's
great. Check that out.
It was very good. Yeah, very difficult question though. I would not have guessed Stanley Tucci either. I did not see the movie, and that was my choice. But they come up short. And then when we go into the third question, it was who plays Shia LaBeouf's mother in the 2007 thriller Disturbia. Obviously, I guess, not Disturbia. You're a horror fan, Bibbs. Where does that rank for you? Are you a fan of Disturbia?
You know what? I actually haven't seen Disturbia. I knew it was Shia LaBeouf. I knew it was David Morse. I think David Caruso directed it, if memory serves. But like you go beyond that, I was totally blanking on that. Did not know that one. I would have messed up, as I always do. But like that's actually like again, that's the thing where you really have to have seen that movie. Because Carrie-Anne Moss really isn't in the trailer for that movie very much. They don't really brag like, ooh, Carrie-Anne Moss is in this. You have to see the film. So that's a fair question. That's kind of a tough question. And it decided the game. So that's all there is to that.
Yeah, Kingsmen only getting 2 points in the round. They would have had to have pretty much gone perfect to have a shot here. At least getting the first and third questions right. You could tie it. So World's Finest in their debut, getting 22 points, not even having to go in round 3. Not so bad. I mean, say they went perfect in the round, they would have had, 32 points, which is a very great number. I mean, I'm not saying they would have, but still they had the opportunity to get at least 32 points. Not bad for a debuting team, Frank.
No, 22 points and not even having to answer your third round questions. To get you in the top 10 scoring in teams, you got to hit 26 points to be in the top 10 scores. So to hit 22 in 2 rounds, that's pretty good. That's pretty good stuff. And you know what they did more importantly is they took advantage of the Kingsmen's mistake twice in the second round, and that's a good sign of a team that they're able to answer their category and answer their opponent's category when they get the opportunity. So that was good to see from World's Finest, and I look forward. I really do. I really look forward to seeing World's Finest go up against some more quality competition throughout the year.
Yeah. Any kind of closing thoughts on this one for you, Beast? Anything you want to add to this?
No.
Okay. Moving right along.
There it is.
I said my piece. I think they're fun teams. I look forward to seeing more from them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're all in agreement with that. We love both of these teams, so looking forward to seeing. I really loved, like I said, the irrational confidence of the Kingsmen. So let's get into the first ever Patreon exclusive match. It debuted on the Patreon earlier. We got to see it as the preliminary match, the undercard match for the Beast Godfather main event. It was Josh Macuga versus the producer seducer Nick Scarpino. Nick Scarpino, of course, 0-2 in the movie Trivia Schmoedown, and Josh Macuga, one of the unique distinctions of having, is it the most matches, Frank?
He is tied now with JTE for 16 total singles matches.
That's a lot of matches.
Yeah.
And he hasn't obviously won them all, but he has always made them memorable. And Josh Macuga was the reason you became a fan of the movie Trivia Schmoedown, right, Frank? It was Macuga Christian.
Yeah, that match between Macuga and Christian in 2014, that whole Blue Fairy incident, the Matthew Broderick stuff. I mean, yeah, that's what sent me on this path.
By the way, if you haven't checked it out this week, go check out After Schmo with Frank Janisch. He was a special guest on that show, and he was a special guest on Outlaw Nation with John Roca. Jinga Janisch getting all the love as of late. And they're
Yeah.
forgetting your man Brad Gilmore. They're forgetting the Beast Bibbiani. No love for Chris
Hey,
Clark.
Bibbiani's got his own show on SK Plus. Yeah.
I know, but and he's guesting on ours, so I guess he actually is getting love. No love for me and Chris Clark though. We're out here in the cold.
Dude,
Chris.
you do a
It's
show with
terrible.
Booker T. Come on, man.
I don't know. I don't even know what that means. That's not germane to this case at all.
Oh,
I'm talking about on SK Plus shows. But let's talk about this match. My expectations for this match were obviously tempered a little bit. Like when it comes to, the scores, were they going to be outrageous? I wasn't even looking for it. I knew, and Beast, you mentioned this earlier, when Josh Macuga is on screen, you have to watch. It's just something about him that is magnetic, and he makes everything entertaining.
Well, what I love about Josh Macuga is that, yeah, he is magnetic, he is entertaining, but he's entertaining and magnetic in a very particular way. You look at the charisma of even someone who I despise with every part of my being, like John Roca, and he comes on with this, he's got this macho persona and this facade, and that's like this part of like who his character is. Macuga's character he's nice. Isn't he nice? He's just fun, and he's enjoying being here, and it doesn't matter if he loses. And that's a sort of like thing. We can't have that for everybody. Only so many people can own that. But he has nailed that down, and he loves being there. And this was a really fascinating match because there were two people, and we've all seen Scarpino try to be like really competitive, like try to like really like play up almost an antagonist kind of angle. But these two guys, they could not hide the fact that they actually really like each other, to the point where even like the opening bit where you're supposed to smack talk, they just sort of just walked in on each other and just said, "Oh, hey man, what you doing? Doing your intro?" Like that was a lot of fun.
At one time, we thought there were going to be a team,
Right.
and so obviously there wasn't any bad blood here. And I loved how they just stepped in each other's frames. I was like, "Hey, buddy, you ready to play the match, buddy?" I mean, it was all love, and it was all. It was all producer, seducer, and the wild man, Frank.
Yeah, I thought, first of all, this was a great first match for the Patreon supporters. If you're supporting the Patreon and you have this tier, I think this was a great first match to get as a supporter, let alone for the general audience that watches or that's outside of the tier or what have you. Their relationship is so endearing to one another. Because of the beards, I guess, and just their general personalities meld together pretty well. Yeah, I love seeing them kind of go a different route in terms of the intros and kind of just do a joined one. And it was a lot of the whole thing. This whole match from start to finish, they were all as one, even though there was a winner and a loser. I mean, they were all in it together. It was a very interesting way to go about a Schmoedown match. I don't think we've seen something like this between two competitors in the singles match like this, in terms of the banter between. I mean, they were shots here and there, but they were very lively and friendly with each other, and it made for a great time to watch this match.
And that's kind of my point. Is again, I think the Schmoedown is at its best when it can surprise you and we can handle different types of matches at once.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have grudge matches between people who obviously like have a lot of bad blood, have a real competitive streak against each other. You can have matches like me and Drew McQueenie where we sort of respect each other, but we don't actually have any like serious drama between each other. We don't have like a storyline. And then you can have matches where people actually like each other, and that can still be entertaining so long as they play it up enough, and they play it up great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there doesn't always have to be disdain for the other person. There doesn't. You can definitely be friends. You can still go head to head and want to win. And I mean, you can still have the Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan as your main event. Two good guys can go at it, and it's not a big deal. And that's what we saw here. We saw two friends, two guys who were potentially going to be teammates. At one time, I thought we were going to see a Wild Berries faction being formed.
The Northern Berries.
The Northern Berries.
I think it's great. That's awesome.
The Northern Berries, that is pretty entertaining. And then entrance-wise, Macuga, they're not. There might not have been some elaborate entrance, but we got the Wild Man dance. We got
Yeah.
Wild Thing being played. It is spring training, so it's time to watch Major League, not Major League 2, and definitely not Major League 3, back to the minors. And then you had the Genuine Classic of Pony being played by the producer seducer Nick Scarpino. I enjoy the character work in this match was pretty good, Beast. At least I think.
Well, yeah, these guys know what they're doing. They've got their characters down pat. Again, I am disappointed that no one went a little extra on their intro. They don't have to, but they didn't. So I think it's fair to point that out. It wouldn't be such a problem for me if, again, so many entrances this season haven't been on a little on the mellow side. But you're right. We got the Wild Man dance. That's important. Scarpino playing it up a little bit, selling his character. They didn't do nothing, but I want more.
Yeah.
Like, give me something to work with. Go nuts. Bring back the Blue Fairy. Like, come on.
Oh,
go nuts.
It's interesting how I looked so forward to the Macuga dance, the Wild Man dance. I'm disappointed if we don't see it, and I think there was one match where we almost didn't get it, and he did like the tail end of his entrance. I was like, thank you, we can finally get on with the match. Finally get on with the match because we got it.
I think
now everything's all right.
We saw a Wild Man dance by Macuga and Scarpino in stereo during this match too, so you must have been like extra excited. During this. Let's get into it, guys. Because this was the undercard, so let's talk about it. Rather quickly. Let's get into round number 1. It ends 7-6. Josh Macuga ups by 1 point, scoring 87% of the answers correct, almost 88%. And Nick Scarpino 75. That's stats from Frank Janisch that I'm reading off there. Not a bad round from either man. I did before I guess I get into my diatribe. Let me throw to you first, Beast. What'd you think? Round number 1, Macuga. Here he comes. He's got the knowledge. 7 out of 8. It's not bad.
No, this is a really good match from Macuga. As I said, I think Macuga is a guy who you watch his matches because he's very, very entertaining, and you're always kind of pleasantly surprised when he wins. And this is, I think, the best playing I've ever seen from Macuga.
Oh, yeah.
He really did. Yeah. This is a solid, competitive match. He really knew his stuff. The questions in round 1 were good, but not insane. The Back to the Future one, I think, was poorly phrased because we do see 2 different dogs who are named different things over the course of the first Back to the Future. But
that's what I was going to bring up.
I think if anyone, I'm pretty sure that if anyone had picked the other dog, they would have challenged and they would have been forced to say, okay, fair enough. So it's not a big deal. It didn't end up causing any problems. It could have, but it didn't. So who cares? But yeah, this is a solid round from everybody. Not a lot of controversies, nothing too catastrophic to talk about. Just good, solid round 1.
And to that Back to the Future question, Macuga does kind of make reference to.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, what year are you talking? 85? And then Christian was like, "Do you want to use repeat a JTE?" He's like, "No, I'm good. I'm good on that." And obviously there's Einstein, and then there's
Copernicus.
Come here, boy. buddy. So yeah, that was definitely something that could have happened. So phrasing's always something that comes up on the Schmoedown, and I think it comes up in any trivia game ever. So it's not a unique issue to the Schmoedown. And I wouldn't even say it's an issue. It doesn't happen often, but that was a question. Whenever I hear Back to the Future, my ears perk up. Like Copernicus's or Einstein's or Zoe's.
There was another tricky one in there. I don't think anyone feel out of it, but if you want to get technical, Zachary Quinto and Leonard Nimoy were not the only people who played Spock in the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie. There was the young Spock, played by Jacob Kogan.
Oh.
In that early scene where we see him get over emotional beat up again. So technically there was one more, but again, it was irrelevant. I'm sure if someone actually knew Jacob Kogan's name, a name I had to look up. I'm not that good. But I knew there was that kid. There's a third person.
Yeah.
I'm sure you would have challenged it, so it really was kind of irrelevant. But again, phrasing, these things happen.
And there's actually going to be in this match, there's one more that I want to bring up when we get to the question. But yes, good round by Josh Macuga. Definitely some of the best that we've ever seen of him. Locked
Josh
in.
Macuga never has ever played this well in his entire life. The most he's ever gotten correct in the first round since the Collider era is 5 points. That's the most he's ever gotten. So for him to get 7 is literally like him getting 9 points. It completely shocked me the way. I mean, he missed the first question. I was like, here we go, and then he gets the other 7 correct. And I was like, whoa! And he's actually up over Scarpino by 1. And Scarpino, he's no slouch either. He's run into some really bad luck. And I'll get into that at the end when we've wrapped this match up, and I'll just explain just how bad of a luck he's had. But Macuga, man, 7 to Scarpino 6, that shocked me.
Yeah, he was just locked in. Like I said, he was locked in. So when you go into round number 2, obviously the momentum kind of feels like it's on Macuga's side, but Scarpino's he's definitely in distance. He can catch him he can catch him very easily. So Macuga decides to defer to Nick Scarpino. Scarpino spins directors, hesitates on it, thinks about it, goes again, and gets coming of age films, which I honestly don't think is an easy category at all, because I think that there's a lot of movies that could fit into the category of coming of age, and it just kind of is, it's up to you to be like, okay, what could be in that? So I think directors for me would have been a category that at least I have a more of an understanding of what movies could, not what movies, but I know where the category can go. Coming of age, in my opinion, you don't always know, but Beast, I defer to you on this one.
I think coming of age is a very interesting category because of how often it comes up. It's actually a very specific genre of films. It's not like horror or whatever. It actually has very particular bullet points. And yet, even within that framework, almost anything can qualify if it's about kids or teenagers.
Right.
Yeah.
Like almost anything. Like it's actually more...
Is Goonies a coming of age? Is Back to the Future? I don't know.
They all reach valuable lessons and come to terms with important issues about adulthood. I mean, yeah, I would say Back to the Future is technically a coming of age movie. So it's this weird category, and it's bizarre to me how often it is on the wheel. So I'm not complaining about it. I just find it odd,
and people stay away from it for the most part.
Well, because again, it's another one where there's coming of age movies. I mean, I think I had coming of age once, and I think like Rebel Without a Cause came out or something like that, or someone did. And that's perfectly fair, but that movie is like going on 70, 80 years old now. So there's a vast swath of film history that it can touch upon, and the questions could be anything. So, I said before that a super specific category can be a double-edged sword, but a very general category can be as well, because it's just anything.
That's what, and that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why I think he even made reference. He's like, oh crap, I should have stuck with directors, because when he saw some of the questions that were coming up, he was like, oh man, I'm not so sure about this. He gets 5 points. Frank, where does that normally fall? That's I would assume that's a little below the average.
It's boy, we're working these sound effects overtime today. It's about right. If it's not elite level, it's right around the league average. I mean, you obviously want to be near that 7 to 8 points. Obviously, 8 is the perfect. 7 to 6 is generally where most of the people who are in contention for titles, that's where they generally land at. So 5, not too far off, especially if the coming of age category, like we said, it can go many different directions. So to come away with 5 in coming of age is actually pretty good, all things considered. And then since he did go first, he had opportunities later to potentially pick up some points if Macuga dropped a question, which he didn't. But Scarpino, he gave up that 1 point to Macuga, which if Macuga is going to steal a point off of you, that's not a good sign. And I'm not trying to poo-poo Macuga, but I mean,
yeah, he's not a bad. I mean, like,
no,
yeah.
I mean, he's a 500 player, so he's a 500 player in his entire career. He's 8-8, So after this match, but so yeah, there we go.
So yeah, there we go. Yeah, definitely. Maybe you should have stuck with directors. Maybe you would have done better. But then Josh Macuga goes. He spins. and he gets the dreaded opponent's choice. And this is where I thought that the magic of the Blue Fairy had finally seen its last bit of fairy dust, because opponent's choice is something that nobody wants. But definitely Josh Macuga. I mean, he's got a few weaknesses out there. You know, we've seen a big sample size of Josh Macuga. With Scarpino, you've only seen, 2 matches. Josh, you've seen a big sample size, so you know what he's good at, you know what he's bad at. So I don't think it's definitely not a good thing for anybody, but in particular Josh Macuga. And now, Frank, you're gonna have to remind me. I believe it was the Cody Hall Lon Harris match where the chants of Meryl Streep rang throughout the studio, the old studio.
That is correct.
Which I actually believe was started by William Bibbiani. I might be off on that, but I think that he did start the Meryl Streep chant.
I think it was Bryan.
Was it Bryan? Okay, never mind.
We were like sitting like right next to each other. Like it was kind of simultaneous.
Co-founders.
I would think we were co-founders. Regardless, that was a very organic moment. It was very beautiful.
Yeah, it was great.
And then, not just a couple weeks later, we get chants ringing throughout the new studio of Natalie, Natalie, Natalie. Obviously, talking about Natalie Portman, Josh Macuga tried to argue the fact that Portman would be an easier chant. I wholeheartedly disagree. But he ends up getting that Natalie Portman category and gets 6 points.
Yeah, and he still maintained a 2-point lead at the end of it. So, which is big, because you want to have that lead go into the third round, because a vast majority of the time, if you have that lead, you come away with a win. So, for him to get Natalie Portman, and he navigated that category like someone who's played 15 matches, went to multiple choice when he had to, and he capitalized, because in his career, he's only answering 63% in round 2. So for him to get 100% across the board, 4 for 4, he's only done that once, and that was against Finstock, the match against Finstock, or Finn Draco, whatever you want to call him. That was the only time he did that, and he got 6 points in that turn. So he went to multiple choice a couple times there. So for him to go 4 for 4 here, use multiple choice 3 times, and get, and not give up anything to Scarpino for him to even tie it up or gain a lead, was very good play from Macuga.
Yeah, he was like I said. I mean, I think that the summary of this whole entire match for Josh Macuga was #LockedIn, which is the Rockets hashtag, by the way. That's why I threw that out there. We are the #1 team in the NBA right now.
All right, Schmoedown.
And James Harden did make the Clippers look ridiculous, but I digress. Yeah, so Josh Macuga was definitely locked in. So we go to round number 3. Josh Macuga chooses numbers 3, 9, and 19. And then Scarpino chooses 13, 14, 15. We get Josh Macuga obviously gets 80s. He doesn't do his 2 other questions, but he gets 80s. He gets the points. And then we get to Nick Scarpino. His question for new releases, I cannot remember off the top of my head what that one was. Does anyone remember?
That was the Boss Baby, wasn't it?
The Boss Baby, yeah. Yeah, it was Boss Baby. It was, Alec Baldwin. Pretty simple 2-point question. This is the one that I have the point of contention with. The sports category. I believe the question was, who played the manager of the Oakland Athletics in Moneyball? Nick Scarpino answered Brad Pitt. Answer was Philip Seymour Hoffman. Here was my question, though.
Repeat the question real quick. That was from the match. Repeat the question.
I believe was in Moneyball, who played the manager of the Oakland Athletics?
Correct.
That was the question.
The manager, yes.
The manager.
Mm-hmm.
He said Brad Pitt.
That is wrong.
It was declared to be wrong. Philip Seymour Hoffman was the manager
that is
of
correct.
the team. But Brad Pitt played Billy Bean.
Mm-hmm. The general manager.
The general.
Which is a different job, though, right?
It is a different job.
But does it not have manager?
There's a clear distinction in baseball between general manager and manager. The general manager is more like an executive producer, and the manager is more like a director. So you think you think of it like that.
I don't. But I'm saying. But here's my thing. My question is this: not do I disagree with Brad Pitt being incorrect? Because I do. It's not the right answer. But my question is this: had Scarpino challenge that, where do you, Bibbiani, you obviously have been a competitor in the game. Do you think there could have been a challenge there? Because Brad Pitt was technically a manager of the Oakland Athletics.
If he knew that that was the case, not just because it didn't sound like he was super confident. Didn't sound like he knew like the problem was general manager versus manager. He didn't say that. But if he had known that, and if he had pushed it for, I think there's some middle ground here. You run into some problems because if you know the distinction, you already admitted that you know the right, you said the wrong answer.
Right.
So it might have been worth pushing. I have opportunities to challenge in my games, except for this week when I should have, and I realized it after the fact. But you're not always clear-headed at the time. You might have. It might have been worth doing, especially in the last round. Because like in the first round, you're like, is it really worth doing it for 1 point? Last round, probably worth doing it. I would have tried. Worst case scenario, you lost it. But who knows? Maybe they would have. Maybe the gods would have been favorable, and they would have thrown out the question and asked the less confusing one.
And perhaps I was just wondering, would that been a valid challenge? And I would like to throw that out to the Schmoevillians listening right now. Tweet us at Schmoedown RD. Should he have challenged at that? And do you think the challenge would have been, validated, or would they have gone with a new question? I'd like to know what you think. Tweet us at Schmoedown RD. Last category, Tom Hanks, and comes up short on the answer. And we see the wild man, Josh Macuga, of the Wild Berries, who will be competing. Josh Macuga will be competing here in just a couple weeks live, but he comes away with the big W. So in any final analysis, Frank, before we move on to the main event of this match?
Josh Macuga played the game of his life. He went 12 of 13, 13 of 14 to count his steal. Missed just one question, the very first one of the match. Insane to think this would have happened to Scarpino yet again. Now, last year, Scarpino in his 2 matches, he ran up to formidable opponents, and he faced off against Rachel Cushing and Mark Bernardin, and combined those 2 players, they went 24 of 28. That's nearly 86% correct. So he has to be near flawless in those matches to win. And again, that's the case here. He would have had to gone perfect to have a shot in this match. And it's really insane to me that he runs into these kind of performances from players, whether they're great players like Rachel and Mark or 500 players like Macuga. He just happens to throw, a no-hitter, essentially, almost, in a sense. Not a perfect game, but a no-hitter. What does Scarpino got to do? I mean, for 3 matches, in all 3 of these matches, for him to have a chance to win, he has to literally run the table just to have a chance to win, and that's not even a guarantee that he win. So it just kind of boggles my mind that he's gone up against this kind of competition in his first 3 matches. It's just surreal.
Yeah, I don't think he's definitely not a bad player. I think he's got a lot of great knowledge base. He's got a great general knowledge base, and he can be a great player. He's still looking for that big W, but when he gets it, there might be a storyline here. Scarpino looking for that first big win. That's always a nice storyline in pro wrestling. So, Bibbs, anything that you want to say about this match before we get to the main event?
I would like to say that I have no idea what it's like to be really good at movie trivia and have a lousy. What a strange experience that must be. What an odd curse to have to live with. Because here's the thing. Yeah, you can look at the stats and look at someone and say, oh, they're actually a pretty good player. But to some people, all that matters is the win. Yeah. And on some level, that's what does matter. It is a sport. But at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean you suck either. Sometimes the odds were not in your favor.
Yeah, LeBron James can break every one of Michael Jordan's records, but if he doesn't have as many rings as Michael, he will never be the GOAT. So let's move into the main event of the evening. 3 rounds in the heavyweight division of the Movie Trivia Schmoedown. This was the match that we had all been waiting for. Chris Clark, I actually want to throw it to you first, my good sir. Chris Clark said on the Facebook group, the Movie Trivia Schmoedown Facebook group, this was the most anticipated match of all time. We discussed it here on the Movie Trivia, on the Schmoedown Rundown. We discussed this as being one of our most anticipated matches of the season. When it was announced, we were like, wow, this is big. Chris Clark, what was your excitement level and what were you thinking going into it?
I was so optimistic. I know if you guys are in this Movie Trivia Schmoedown page, I get a lot of flack for supporting Bibbiani as much as I do, and Whitney Seibold and critically acclaimed. I don't give a crap. I mean, look, this match in particular.
You don't give a crap on a bed.
I don't give a crap on a bed. Winky face. But look. This match has two Goliaths. It's King Kong versus Godzilla. And this match, going into it, I knew was going to be probably one of the best matches we've ever seen. Did it deliver? We're gonna get to that. But I mean, this whole entire match, I was so highly anticipated to maybe show some people that yes, Bibbs has got this. Bibbs knows his stuff. He's gonna defeat the Godfather. Everything is gonna be great. And you know what? It was still a fantastic match, and I'm still proud about it. So overall, this one was a rock star. This. I'm going in and it was gonna go into a rock concert, and I got one.
I would like to take this opportunity before we get any further into the match to apologize to Chris. Over and over again. Your loyalty
necessary.
It's
oh, you know what? It doesn't matter. You could lose any day of the week, and it's still amazing. I don't care. And loyalty.
Frankie Frank, Jinga Janisch.
Yeah.
Going into this match, I mean, I'm not joking. I was super hyped for this. I thought this was this was one of the biggest matches that were made. You know, this was like top 10 and top that. I mean, I was super excited going into it.
Yeah, this was a match Christian had tried to set up, you know, in terms of, you know, each McWeenie and Bibbiani, they're going to play a couple players, and then we're going to have them meet. And the Schmoedown's unpredictable, and things didn't pan out that way. So what did they finally do? They just said, you know what, screw it. Let's just have them, you know, go head-to-head right away and just bypass that whole journey thing. And people want to see this match anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's going to be great. And, you know, it was a great match. And, yeah, I was just super excited that this match was finally happening. We've seen the run McWeenie has been on. We all know how great Bibbiani has been, whether it's in the free-for-all, his singles matches, you know, the first 2 rounds. I mean, we'll get into the 3rd round woes, but, you know, anything, I thought surely these 3rd round woes cannot continue to happen. It's just really bad luck. That eventually has to stop. So I was really looking forward to seeing if that would come to fruition, whether or not McWeenie would, you know, show up, because he's been great in teams, but he's been above average in singles, not quite to the level he's been at during team competition. So I wanted to see how that would transfer, and we got a lot of those questions answered here.
Well, let me ask the man himself, William the Beast Bibbiani. When you found out you were going to be facing the Godfather, Drew McWeenie, your reaction was what?
Screw you, Christian. I've been saying that a lot lately. Here's the thing. For whatever reason, I think it's fair to say that me and Drew both know a lot of trivia. But at the same time, right now, we're on kind of a string of bad luck, and we're kind of, for the moment, we were at the same basic level in the rankings. It was pretty close. It was not unreasonable. It would just be paired up, you know, randomly. If you put everyone who could have fought each other in a hat. So it just sort of happened. Like, okay, let's just do with Drew, and I'm like, well, screw you, and this is gonna suck. And you know, I think everyone who takes the competition seriously likes to win. And I knew that, although I knew I could beat Drew, because as tough as Drew is, we've seen he has some serious blind spots. He may remember a lot of movie trivia, but he cannot remember the Titans. So I knew I had a chance if the wheel went my way, if the third round didn't skew too heavily against me, I knew I could take him. So at the same time, it's been a while since I've been in singles. You may recall, it's been a while since I've had a match of any kind, and having those two first round just huge losses in the Ultimate.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I was playing it up a little bit in my intro for this match because I really wanted to set up. Maybe I chickened out, and then we can sort of play it up for the intro. But it's really made me a lot less competitive than I used to be. Like, I got really invested in the competitive angle of the Schmoedown, and that's great. That's a lot of fun. But when luck completely does not go your way, and yeah, okay, part of it is I should have known the answers to those questions, but I picked those questions and those questions sucked. When that kind of streak goes on, you have to ask yourself, am I doing this to win or am I doing this because I enjoy it? And I decided I do this because I enjoy it. And right now I'm a little bit more focused on having a good time, putting on a good show than I am about winning. I want to win. I like to win, but that was my attitude going in. I'm going to go out there, and even if I don't have the best match of my life, even if I don't end up beating Drew, by God, I'm going to have a good intro. That was my idea.
Well, we are definitely going to get into the intro here in just a quick moment. But I do want to speak to, you seem to think that that the Godfather, you're saying screw you, Christian. Well, yeah, and you're seeing, sounds like you're saying that, you thought that he, not only you thought you could beat him, but you thought that he had the one up on you. Now, he was the favorite in this match, which I find interesting, Frank, because when you look at the lifetime average for both competitors,
Yeah.
Drew McQueenie has a lifetime average of 73.47% of the answers correct. He has answered the questions correct 73.47% of the time, while William the Beast Bibbiani has answered the questions correctly 78.05% of the time. Almost a full 5% more on average than Drew McQueenie. So statistically speaking, Frank, because that is your strong suit,
yeah,
wouldn't the Beast be the favorite in this match?
Yeah,
Statistically speaking,
yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. But they do take into account wins and losses here, as Bibbiani has touched on earlier. So that's what's so like crazy to me is these first two rounds, Bibbiani just crushes them, and then for whatever reason, 3 other questions in the third round, he gets 1 out of 3, or or just it's. I don't even know. I don't even have words at this point. And I know Bibbiani can't have many because I'm. Just...
well, and I want to say Bibbiani's words because this is what we got to talk about. Even though, so every WrestleMania, me being a big wrestling fan, every WrestleMania since I can remember watching, there was a match that no matter what, I was always looking forward to for 2 reasons. And it was whatever the Undertaker's match was going to be that year was my most anticipated match. 1, because he always put on a hell of a show at the biggest stage. And 2, he always had an incredible entrance. And I think that the entrance is a big topic of conversation on this show today. And boy, did William the Beast Bibbiani show us how to do a massive, incredible entrance on a big stage.
He killed Mark Riley. Oh my gosh.
Not only did he kill Mark Riley, who I had a lovely phone call with earlier, he kills after we get off the phone and he goes to the Movie Trivia Schmoedown, but the entrance was so creative. It was on a different level. I had to rewind it because I didn't understand what I saw, and it was just so awesome. So, Beast, let's talk about the entrance first. You've always been known for your entrances. You've been somewhat critical of other people's entrances on this episode today. How did this idea come to you? Did you think that it was going to be possible to pull off? And did you think it was going to come off as awesomely as it did?
Okay, so whenever I find out I'm coming up, I go through a really long brainstorming and jam session, often with my wife, Michelle, trying to come up with the best possible scenario based on what I currently have available. You know, to do something really elaborate sometimes costs a lot of money, and we don't necessarily have the money right now to spend hundreds of dollars on something, for example. So this was a long process where I almost did the Phantom of the Opera. I almost did a couple of different things. There was one thing I had in my back pocket in case because we ended up because this obviously required some visual effects. So there was a chance it wasn't going to be practical. There was a chance we were just going to try it out and be like, it's not working at all. So I had something a little bit less elaborate in my back pocket that I will do the next time I do a singles game. Just in case. I already have my next one planned, and it is. I think it might be maybe not my hugest, but I think it might be my funniest one. So I'm really excited to whip that one out. But right now, yeah, I was just like, I don't have anything for like a costume, but I really want to do something crazy. And I've already done Predator the last time I was in that situation where I couldn't do a costume and I wanted to. And I was like, what else can I do? What's like the spiritual successor? Well, of course, it's Alien. But it was a matter of, is it practical? So we worked with the team. We was like, how can we pull this off on a practical level? And of course, what they decided was we shrank me down. And we put me inside Mark Riley's stomach, and then I burst out of him violently, without his knowledge, obviously. Otherwise, that wouldn't have been any fun. And then, as he was on the floor dying, I scurried over to the table, and I increased in size.
Yeah,
and then I played the game.
Amazing.
A very very practical effect, and just incredible what you're able to still do in filmmaking with practical effects. I mean, CGI. Why do we need that crap anymore? We don't need it. When you can do stuff like that practically, is quite incredible. But no, it was such an awesome entrance, and when Mark Riley starts selling, and
I thought
he's not even selling. I mean, that was real. When he started feeling those real emotions and these real feelings inside of his body, I didn't know what was going on. Obviously I was like, okay, well, Beast isn't coming out to the music. That, for me, coming from wrestling, was a telltale sign of, for a second, this is what I thought was going to happen. I thought, oh, they're going to cut to a camera angle backstage, and someone's knocked out the Beast. Like he's laying on the floor.
Knocked me out with movie trivia.
Yeah, and someone's going to come out in his place, and we're not going to.
It's like Andrew Guy going just rogue, just knocking people out now.
Yeah, like I thought that would have been perfect. Andrew Guy tackles the Beast backstage, and he,
for no reason. Yeah.
He decides he wants to take on the guy. That's what I thought. That was what was going on in my head. And then to see you pop out of Mark Riley's stomach, and to see it being in reference, in allusion to Alien, just so smart. If that does not win the entrance of the year,
that's front runner for sure.
There is something wrong with the award system.
Listen, I understand not winning any other award at the show, but I was mad that I wasn't a serious contender for best entrance of the year. So I was like, that is never going to happen again. I may lose every match this year, but I am not losing that award.
No, I think wasn't the Predator one? Wasn't the Predator one?
It was nominated.
It was nominated.
But
yeah.
I knew and I suspected it wasn't going to win.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
But that one is surely going to get nominated next year.
This
Come
one
on.
is
it has.
automatic.
This one's a nominee, but it's kind of like sometimes during the season you can just point and say, "Oh, yep, there it is, there it is." And when Mark Andreyko had his moment at the table when he cleared the table. Sorry, Beast, but when he cleared the table, you're like, "Yep, that's it. That's the one right there. That's moment of the year." And I said that the first time I was on this podcast, before even the awards came out. Like, that's the moment of the year. And so this is you can see it. You're like, "Yep, there it is. That's it. That's the entrance of the year." And then Drew McQueen, of course, with the customary Godfather theme, he comes out. I believe that he made some allusion to whacking you, I believe, in his opening promo. Am I right, Beast?
I don't know. I don't listen to it. No, I don't know. Like, here's the thing. I can't, I'll get myself psyched up too much if I listen too much to other people smack talk about me. So I really wasn't paying too close attention. So if there was a whacking reference, I missed it. That's all. I watched it. I just didn't I must have missed that if that was the thing.
And there was some sort of talk to it, but he was definitely playing more up into the Godfather character, I think, than I had seen him do in previous matches. He was owning that persona, owning that nickname more.
He's real quick. He's another one of these players that's getting more comfortable doing these types because he wasn't an on-camera guy, much like Rachel. So he's getting more comfortable with developing his personality and how he wants to portray that in the Schmoedown. It's not necessarily all like flashy entrances like Bibbs, but he's bringing more of a stronger personality, a more imposing personality, if you will, to his intros and entrances. Yeah. So I like this newfound attitude that Drew McWeeny has, and then he's bringing it to the Schmoedown.
No, yeah, definitely. He's growing with the show. And that was a great analogy, much like Rachel Cushing did. So let's get into it, though. Let's get into it, Beast. Round number 1, William the Beast Bibbiani scores 7 points out of a possible 8, nearly getting that perfect round yet again. I thought he was going to do it. And Drew McWeeny only coming out with 5, which I think was more surprising than Beast getting 7 was McQueenie only getting 5, answering 62, almost 63% of his questions correctly in round number 1. Let me throw it to you first, Beast. When you get 7 out of 8 and you see McQueenie's got 5 out of 8, what are you feeling at that moment?
I'm feeling this is great, but it's probably not going to last. So I really wanted to take advantage of that. And
the eternal optimism there.
Well, you never underestimate him. Never underestimate your opponent. I made that mistake once. I'm never doing that again. But I knew in the second round I needed to go first at that wheel and try to build that point gap as much as I can to try to intimidate him, because Drew is confident. But the thing about people who are confident is if you can shatter that confidence, they don't necessarily know what to do with it afterwards. So I mean, when it came down to that match, there was one where Drew simply hadn't written the whole answer down on his board. I think that does count as not having it. You did not have it written down in time.
Yeah.
And that sucks because obviously he knew the answer. I do think it's kind of funny that in both this singles match and the team match this week, the first question were both Sleeping Beauty.
Yes.
I thought that was kind of funny. But the thing that actually got me was the question that I lost, and I did not put this together until after the match was over. I wish I had. The question was at the very least phrased inaccurate, because the question was which of these films was not nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars, and they all were.
Yeah.
So but here's the thing. What I think is interesting is that Drew and I both picked Field of Dreams, because I think what we were thinking the question was which of these films were not nominated for Best Director. And Field of Dreams wasn't nominated for Best Director, and a lot of people were very surprised about that and thought Phil Alden Robinson was a little slighted. And I'm actually one of them. He's one of my favorite filmmakers. So that's where I think that confusion came in. But the thing is, if we had challenged that question, or if someone had caught that question was inaccurate, I might have had that 8th point, which might have got me the bonus question, which means that in the last, at the end, Drew would have at least had to answer his last question.
Yeah.
It was really, 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 really close. And so as a result of that, I am saying, although I think Drew won the match fairly, I really want a rematch, because that was super close. And I'm not entirely sure it was the best scenario for all of us. I want another match with Drew as soon as I can. Now, I realize that's not something I can make happen. I'm not going to force Christian to do it. He can't force me to do it. But I really want to play him again.
All 3 of those movies were nominated for Best Picture in the same year, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So, So something's got to be done there.
So I'm not mad. These things happen. And again, we could have challenged it. Neither of us realized that was off, because again, I think we were director.
Yeah.
So I'm not mad about it. It's just dang it, that really could have gone very, very differently. So I really want to challenge Drew again at some point, as soon as the stars align again.
I mean, maybe even some sort of special scenario. Maybe a sudden death or something. We could just do a sudden death and just, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, Christian. If you're listening, maybe we could do something.
And it's all to chance. I'm not saying that I would have gotten, because for all I know, I might have missed the bonus question, but I could have had it. Potentially. Yeah. I might have missed the other question if they had changed the question.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation that happened, and I know Chris, he feels bad whenever he gets there's ever kind of a slip up with a question. I know he feels bad about it. I've heard from him about it, and unfortunately, there's nothing do about it. And it is surprising that two players of the highest caliber between Bibbiani and McWeeny, it also slipped by them. So
yeah, I blame myself as much as anyone. Honestly,
you know,
I'm not mad. It's just like, dang it, that's unfortunate. I want to try again someday.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. But another thing I kind of want to go back to real quick is the Sleeping Beauty question, where Drew knew it and he was asked first to reveal his answer, say his answer. He knew it was Sleeping Beauty, but didn't get Beauty written down on the board.
It said Sleeping Bee.
Sleeping Bee, which is never mind. But Bibbiani got it right. And what I'm kind of wondering here is, if you have the advantage, I guess you might call it an advantage of saying your answer first, that your whole question doesn't have to rely as much on the erase board. If you can verbalize it in the erase board, which you've written on there, kind of validates what you wrote, and then when the second person goes, it's not like, you know, they're listening to your answer, and so they're going to say it because they have to reveal that they actually did know it by writing it on the whiteboard. So because there's 8 questions, that advantage would be 4 times each player. I'm wondering if this is a thing that they might look at in the future, or not at all. I don't know. I'm just
So wait,
throwing it out
let me make sure I have you correct. So you're saying, had Beast revealed his answer first,
Mm-hmm.
and then it went to McQueenie, and McQueenie still had Sleeping Bee on there,
he would get it wrong.
He would still get it wrong.
I'm going to throw out my 2 cents on this, because I think the only way, because you can't like have them reveal at the same time without like get confused for audio. So
Right.
someone's always going to reveal their answer first. The person who reveals their answer second might have a bit of an advantage from a pronunciation perspective if the first person gets it right.
True.
The only equalizer here, the most important thing, I think, has to be the whiteboard. It has to be, is it written down? And as a result, I think that's the thing that should matter more than anything else. I've gone on record before about my philosophy about like pronunciation and even spelling, where I think as long as you are getting it phonetically about right,
Yeah.
then I think you're fine. I'm not going to complain if you put Darren Aronofsky with an I or something. I don't care.
Sure.
But like, you know, I think he didn't get, if he had gotten down, honestly, I might have been more forgiving if he had been Sleeping Bee and then the rest of it was almost like a squiggle with like a Y at the end. I would have been like, okay, yeah, I might even let that slide, because clearly you were just in a rush.
Yeah.
And you get the gist of it right.
And your penmanship isn't the best.
Yeah, like these things happen, but like, you know, there's leeway in here somewhere. But I think it was fair, and I'm not just saying that because I got that right.
No, it's fair. It's been
because he clearly knew the answer, but he just didn't get it down in time. I think he got it.
It's a consistent ruling that's we've seen before. If it's not written down, then it doesn't happen. I'm just wondering if we can just, there's a leeway for that for the first person who reveals.
Would this have counted? Is that what you're saying?
Probably, if you had said Sleeping Beauty as he revealed it, I think probably would have been more or less fine.
Okay. Just
if the other person had challenged it, maybe you could have done it. Maybe it wouldn't have challenged.
Right, so now,
I don't make this rule, but if I were judging, I'd probably cut.
So now, what if you're the second person and you revealed that? You know, now it's like, oh well, he heard it. Did he really know the second word was? Do you know what I'm saying? We get into these weird areas now.
You do, which is, again, I think it's all a matter of. And I got the letter B down. Ran out of time. He could have used his JT.
He could have. You're right. And Christian did point that out. Yeah, and Christian did point that out.
And that's another thing. I mean, even the veteran or someone who's been in these big matches before, like a Drew McQueenie, you know, sometimes you still slip up and you don't remember all the rules that are at your disposal and all the things that could have helped you. Because had he done that, you know, he would have definitely been up that question. He wouldn't have gotten that question wrong. So, moving along though, so that is an interesting thing. I did not realize that about the Oscar question. So I do believe something must at least be discussed about that, and there may need to be some sort of. I mean, I'm just saying in general. I mean,
look,
it's like the Dallas Cowboys Des Bryant catch. Frank, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. The NFL came out. This is from 2015. The NFL came out, I think, this last week, and they said, yeah, that actually was a catch. It doesn't change the result of the finish. It doesn't change the result of the game, but at least they acknowledged, yes, that would have been a catch. So maybe there could be something here.
It's already been acknowledged on the page. I don't think anyone's like super mad about it because, again, it wasn't like
And you
we
both
got
got
it.
it
It was
wrong.
we
Yeah.
both got it wrong. It didn't. It potentially could have affected the outcome of the match because it might have gotten me my bonus, and that might have been a thing. Which is
Yeah.
the only reason I'm sort of like, well, that sucks. But like, other than that, look, it's one mistake out of a million mistakes that don't happen. It's always unfortunate when it is, and I think it's fair to point it out so that they happen less in the future, and hopefully it'll never happen again. But that's all there is to it right now. And I think it's fair to move on. I think we've said all that needs to be said.
And I mean,
Yeah.
just before we do,
But I'm down for the rematch. Frank down for the rematch?
oh yeah, I would love to see the rematch.
I know Chris Clark.
Yeah.
I can see the look on his face. He is
I think everyone out there would
so
love to
down
see the
for a
rematch.
rematch.
Amen to that, brother. Amen.
But I think it's important to point out that we had our first Patreon question pop up at the end of this
Oh,
round.
yes.
So if you're supporting the Patreon and you're at that tier, you got your question up there. Congratulations. I forget your name. I did write it down somewhere. But your questions are going to be now in the match if you're supporting the Patreon. So there you go. There's the first one.
And I would like to
First of
say
many.
right now, that was a good question.
Hey, there you
That
go.
was a rock solid question. That was a really, really good one. So there you go.
I have an idea for a couple questions. I might pop by the tier so I can see them on the match. But anyway, let's get into round numero dos. That's Spanish for 2. We have Drew McQueenie goes second. William the Beast Bibbiani goes first. You got Spinner's Choice, Beast. So after that great round 1, getting 7 out of a possible 8, you get Spinner's Choice. You go with horror. You've got to be feeling supremely confident.
I know my horror. I think my answer was reasonable. It just wasn't right. Yeah, I've been wanting to get horror so often because I'm really, really quite good at that category, and it just never comes up on the wheel. So finally got it, and I think I did pretty good in round 2, actually.
Yeah, 6 points. Yeah. What's interesting though is that the slice was horror, not horror thriller.
Yeah, I was wondering
Good
about that.
distinction there, Frank.
It's Chris, I think, switched it. He now split it up with thriller and horror as 2 separate things, and I think it's good.
Yeah. So that caught my eye, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. You don't worry, think about thrillers, it's just pure horror category. So I thought that was a nice change.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Beast? I mean, the fact that it's just horror
fine.
now.
Honestly, the whole distinction between horror and thriller is a little nebulous. So like there were questions that would come up in the horror thriller category that I thought was like, that's almost more of an action movie or like a suspense movie, really. So like I think if it's horror, it can be very, very clearly horror. Thriller, if the thriller ever comes up on the wheel, might still be a little nebulous, but we'll take that as it comes. These were all valid horror questions, and yeah, I'm fine with that. What I hope is, because it popped up in the Ash versus Evil Dead match, the 80s horror slice. I hope that comes back to the actual matches themselves, because that's a great slice, and there's so much content there that would be really, really fun. I hope that comes back.
Now Drew McQueenie got westerns, which is just another. It's another layer to the Godfather, Drew McQueenie. Just having this wealth of these certain category, wealth of knowledge on these certain categories, including westerns, which we know John Roca, the Beast's best friend, is pretty good at, but is really good at. But Drew McQueenie showing his abilities here in westerns, Frank.
I mean, he used to be known as the sheriff, if I'm mistaken. So
that's right. I forgot he's the sheriff.
Yeah. So for him to take westerns, and he thought about it a little bit, and I was like,
he did,
huh? And I was like, maybe he's not going to take it. I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I want to go back and look at how many times he's respun, because he's a fairly confident guy in his movie knowledge. So whenever he gets a category, he's like, let's do it. Granted, a lot of times it's been 70s. So for him to take westerns and then him to just roll through it, great. I was like, man, are these questions even that hard for him? And then he goes multiple choice once. I was like, aha, they got him one time. Good job, Chris Skaliski. You got him to go to multiple choice, so you kind of knocked him off kilter just a tad, but he got it right, and it was a hell of a round from him. And all of a sudden now, Bibbs is down by 1. Or I'm sorry, he's up by 1, and he doesn't. So that the lead is shrinking.
The lead is definitely shrinking. Bib, when you saw you're still up by 1 going into the third round, I mean, where were you sitting here now on your wheel of confidence?
Okay, so that scene in Dumb and Dumber where Jim Carrey is asking Lauren Holly, like, what are the odds of you and me ever becoming a thing? And she says 1 in a million. And
So
he
he's
says,
saying it's-
you're saying there's a chance. So I'm still like, maybe I could do this, but we'll see. And of course, yeah, it didn't happen. Did not happen. It was not great. Drew's classics question was a bit of a layup, I feel. It's a 2-pointer, so I'm not mad about it, but it was pretty straightforward. Mine, I feel my 2-point was not a trick question, but a tricky question.
It was definitely a tricky question. I agree with that.
Because the question was, in what year did the movie 2012 come out? That's putting a potential answer in the question. It's like telling someone who's like rock climbing not to look down. Like the first instinct is to do it.
Yeah.
It would make perfect sense to put 2012 out in 2012. And as I distanced myself from it, I realized if I'd thought about it a little longer, I probably would have remembered that it did not come out in 2012 because I was I saw it at a different theater and I wasn't where I was when I was in 2012, blah, 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 blah. But like, it's this weird thing where it's like, I don't know. It would be like saying to someone, hey, how many Herbie the Love Bug movies were there? 4? And your first thought is the number 4 because they just said the number 4. Even though that's not the right answer. So it was a little confusing, and I got tripped up. That's all there is to it. It was the wrong answer. I got the wrong answer, but I think that was a weird question. That's all.
Real quick, I just
Frank,
want
there
to.
are 5 Die Hard movies, right?
There's 2 Die Hard movies: Die Hard and Die Hard with a Vengeance.
There you go.
I mean, you see what I did there.
Yeah. I just want to know Chris, what were you thinking going to this third round? Because given the history of Bibbiani's head, I'm just kind of curious what you were thinking at this point, being the big Bibbiani fan that you are.
I was optimistic. Look, I always think Bibbs is going to win regardless of any chance I feel like he would have done. I was really optimistic. Now, look, you guys brought up the 2012 question. Actually, Bibbs, during that, you actually kind of got a free repeat that
I know
if you actually played with that, you probably could have. I know. Just hindsight's 2020. I know.
I really wish I'd had the presence of mind that when I'd said 2012, like with the voice of and they repeated the question, I should have realized that if it was right, they would have just told me I was right.
Oh man.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I thought about that after the fact too. That was so funny.
Yeah, it was great, but it's all a matter of luck. You can look at the movie Trivia Schmoedown as like maybe a version of Mario Kart where yes, you can drive the best, you can turn the best, you can be as great as you can be, and then right on the third lap you get hit with a blue shell and you get in last place. It's all about luck. So I mean, you're human. Everybody's human. This third round was human based. I mean, I don't think even if you can lose your next 4 matches, you'll never retire because you love playing the game. And it's just about the fun of the game. And I feel like even though you lose and you lost, it's fine. You'll pick yourself back up and it'll just be another rock concert in the future. So I was optimistic, but I knew even if you lost, it would still have been a great match.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah. This is way off topic, but speaking of Mario Kart, when I was in Vegas this last weekend, I was at Toy Con. And there was a bumper sticker that says, "Life is like Mario Kart. Sometimes you get hit in the ass with the shell you threw out there." I just wanted to share that little bit of knowledge.
Exactly.
That is nice, isn't it?
I really think there should be a Mario Kart version of the Schmoedown at some point. That would be amazing.
That'd be fun.
I would be down for that. But continue, Beast.
Yeah, no. So anyway, it continued to pace. I got my Page Master question right. I felt pretty good about that.
What do you feel as a movie fan? What do you feel about the Page Master? Because I'm partial to anything that Christopher Lloyd was in, especially Macaulay Culkin in the 90s.
Honestly, I haven't seen it all the way through since I was a kid, but I was doing some listicle or some other article about kids movies or something like that, and I had just looked it up pretty recently. So my memory of it, like as information, was still pretty fresh. There was a moment where I wasn't entirely sure, like the books. I thought they were named after genre, but I was like, maybe one of them they were called Pirate and Ghost and Fairy or something. But I trusted my instinct and I went with Adventure, and that was apt.
And I did like though that you clarified. Are you looking for the books, the character name, or the actor name? Because the first thing when I heard the question, I was like, "Oh, Whoopi Goldberg." Like
Yeah,
it
that
just
was my
came out of
first
it.
instinct. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I checked that as well. And then it comes right down to Frida. And my thought on Frida is this: I have two things I want to say about the Frida question. One, that's a good movie. Actually, three
Great
things. One, that's a good movie. Two, I'm bummed I missed the question, but in my defense, Leon Trotsky is not in that movie very much. And if you look at I checked this afterwards. If you look at the order of the credits, yeah, he's played by Jeffrey Rush. He is 31st in the credits.
Wow.
Wow.
I do not feel too bad for forgetting that. But the third thing I want to say is when all was said and done, Rachel Cushing was in the audience for this one, and I walked up to her afterwards and I was like, "Did you know Jeffrey Rush was Leon Trotsky?" And she just shook her head and said, "Yeah," because she knows everything. So that was a funny moment. She was just sort of just like, "Yeah, I would have destroyed Drew McQueen."
Sorry.
Oh, wow.
I know you wanted to come for me for comfort, but I'm not going to
Yeah,
give it.
no, she would never lie. She's too honorable for that. She would never make me feel better. She would always. Yeah. So anyway, it did not work out.
It didn't work out in your favor, but I mean, still a valiant effort. The Frida question, that was another one. I mean, I'm definitely not the best movie trivia person, but that was one where I was like, whoop, right over the hair on that one because I didn't even know Jeffrey Rush was in that movie, and I saw that movie not too long ago. I had no idea that Jeffrey Rush was even in it. Frank, what was your analysis of that third round for the Beast?
Here we go again. I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, it's. I was like, man, this really cannot be happening, and it just. I really don't know what to say. I mean,
I let you down. There you go. That's all there is to it.
no, it's the Schmoedown is so unpredictable, but for whatever reason, this seems to be like a constant for Bibbiani. It doesn't make any sense. It's like the one thing has stayed true, and ever since the Kalinowski, his second match against Kalinowski, or I'm sorry, Snyder, which wasn't even like he got 2 out of 3, but it was just I don't know. I'm all out of sorts on this one.
I still think there's definitely grounds for a rematch. I would like to see the match, and I know Beast, you're a guy who definitely studies the Schmoedown, right? I mean, I think I saw you at the tapings with a notepad.
Oh yeah.
So
I got that notepad right here, actually. Yeah.
He takes notes. He's one of the guys who studies. So I have no doubt that the next Beast match. I think the next Beast match should be the Godfather versus the Beast. I would like to see round number 2. This could be the makings of the next big Schmoedown trilogy. It could top Manson Roca. We will have to see. But Beast, I can't wait. Do you know? Is there anything on the horizon for you right now in the Schmoedown? Is there anything that you can tell us? Anything you can allude to?
Here's what I can say. You have not seen the last of, and you a little sooner than you think. But I'm not going to tell you any more about that. What I will say is this: I do want to rematch with Drew at some point. However, I'm not entirely sure what this match did to our rankings. I don't want to force it. I want to meet him again on the battle when we are equals. So I'm sure he shot up a bit. I'm sure I'm down a bit. But the good thing about that is that the people at the bottom aren't very good. So the next match, I might actually have a chance. And I'm looking at the stats, and I'm happy to take on anyone from like Ken Knapsack to Jason Inman, who's actually pretty good. He might actually be a real contender, but I think I could take him. But the thing I think is interesting is that a certain other opponent who also looks suspiciously like me and Drew McQueenie has specifically said he is not interested in being a contender, and he wants to play people who are way down at the bottom of the rankings. Well, guess who's there now, Lon Harris?
Oh boy, here we go.
Guess who's there now? You don't have to challenge me. Maybe you're too scared, but I'm there. I'm right there.
I'd love to see it.
I'm in your refrigerator eating your pizza. Like, that's it. You can open the door. I'll come out and say Zool, and you'll be like, ah. I didn't think that metaphor out, but like, yeah, that's something that could be happen. But really, I think the best thing right now really is to focus on teams. And I really think that me and Whitney Seibel, listen, we lost our second match. It was a scorcher. And we scored really, they had to score spectacularly high to beat us. So I feel very, very respectable about what I think Whitney Seibel and I can do once we get back in the ring together. So I'm hoping I'm going to see maybe Team Heroes out there sometime, Team Trek out there as well, DC movie news, hell, superhero movie news. They did pretty good.
Yeah.
I really do think that Teams is probably the best bet right now, because you put me out there alone, and man, I am like an upside down horseshoe. Like I just nothing good at all. It's been really kind of a downer. Yeah.
Well, Beast, I think I can speak for all the Schmoevillians out there, and maybe Chris Clark would be better delivering this message than I. But we love William the Beast Bibbiani in the Schmoedown, and you've been one of the favorite competitors of all the fans, and definitely entrance of the year, if nothing else. William the Beast Bibbiani locked down for himself today. Now, Beast, I have one other question for you.
Sure.
Next week is championship week, and we're going to do something special here on the Schmoedown Rundown. We're going to do the first ever Rundown Schmoedown, where Frank and I'm tired of Jenga Janisch. Talked a lot of crap to me. You know, I mean, he forced me off the show last week because I couldn't take any more of his BS. I had to walk away, and even Booker T himself said he was going to lay the smacketh down on Frank Janisch candy ass, and he called him a sucker. But my question
ran to Booker T. But anyways,
my question to Beast Bibbiani is: if you were a betting man, are you going Team Gilmore, or are you going Team Janisch?
I'm going to throw it out there, and I don't think it's too late to make this happen. I think it's only fair if I say I'm Team Clark.
Okay.
Yes.
He's been my biggest booster ever, and I gotta say, I think it's only fair if he came in and played. If he's not going to, and I think he should, but if he's not going to, I'm going to throw it out there. We got a guy who is very, very charismatic on the mic. We got a guy who hosts this show like a dream. But then we have a guy who actually knows stats and stuff for a living and has been actually paying attention to the show and like watching every question ever multiple times. I gotta say, Frank Janisch might take this. So if I were a betting man,
oh no,
I might actually lean on Frank.
Oh no,
there it is. There.
I just lost all the pressure. That's like the worst thing. That's like Brad tricked you. I think Brad tricked you into like hyping and like getting my spirits up or confusing me. And I think that's what happened. Oh, look at that.
I love Drew.
Wow. Look how quick he flips. Look at that. Might as well just close his laptop right now. Jeez.
Congratulations to the Schmoedown Patreon giveaway recipient of February 2018, Mr. Muhammad Bilal. You are a rock star, man, and you will be getting a Bryan Wood poster of the Patriots vs. Wolves of Steel, signed by Mark Riley himself. You, dude, are a rock star, and make sure to subscribe to the Patreon at patreon.com/Schmoedown for your chance to be the next recipient.
Beast, in any respects, thank you for coming on the Schmoedown Rundown. I think this is definitely going to be a fan favorite episode. I've really enjoyed all of your analysis of everything here. Is there anything that you want to plug while you're on the show?
Sure. Yeah. Listen, I got a couple of podcasts. One of them is right here on the Schmoedown Network. If you haven't listened to it yet, it's called Critically Acclaimed. It stars me and my critically acclaimed Schmoedown partner, Whitney Seibold. We review new movies every week. We answer your letters every week and give you movie recommendations, give you talks about movie history, talk about the philosophy and the controversies of movies. And we also review bad movies that you select for us on the Schmoeville Facebook page. And then we pair them up with a really, really good movie to see how highbrow and lowbrow art is really not that dissimilar. We also have another show, which is not on the Schmoedown Network. It's a separate thing, called Canceled Too Soon, in which we review television series that lasted only one season or less. Most recently, we did the 5-episode live-action Herbie the Love Bug series, which is a tie-in to a critically acclaimed episode. But I'm really excited because throughout the month of March, we're doing only TV series about cops with robot partners. These are shows that lasted, in some cases, one episode, 22. But these are all failed television series about a human cop who has a robot partner who's learning what it means to be human. They tried this over and over and over again, and it never got past the first season. It's like our favorite weird subgenre. So come on down to Cancel Too Soon, cancel with one L, and check it out.
That was I think that was even parodied on an episode of Friends. I think Joey had a
Yeah,
had
mac
a,
and cheese.
mac and cheese. Yes, mac and cheese. Yeah. Interesting. I've listened to a couple episodes of Canceled Too Soon. Have y'all done? No, I don't know how many seasons. How many seasons do the Golden Palace have?
That was one. That was one. We're going to do Golden Palace at some point. In fact, I was doing a lot of research. Golden Palace, for those who don't know, was a spin-off of Golden Girls where only some of the cast returned, and I think Cheech Marin was in it as well.
Cheech Marin and Don Cheadle.
That's right. And they were, and they opened a hotel together because why not? And I wanted to watch all of Golden Girls because I didn't really watch it that much when I was young, and I realized it's like 5 million episodes. So we want to get to Golden Palace at some point, though. But yeah, that's on our fabled list of canceled shows, of which there is no shortage. There are more shows that were canceled like right away than there are shows that were successful. So we've got a ton of stuff, and a lot of it's super duper weird. For every famous one you've heard of, there are a million bizarre ones that you just wouldn't believe. So come on over and check that out.
I am excited when you get to Golden Palace. One of 2 Golden Girls spinoffs, the other one being Empty Nest. I have some trivia knowledge, Frank. You better watch out, man. But I know that's TV.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't care.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Frank. So definitely check out all of the Beast podcast. Chris Clark, what do you want to plug before we get out of here? Get your plugs in there, man.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChrisClark8788. Those numbers mean nothing. You can find me every Wednesday hosting Suddenly Soundtracks, where we on Take 3 Productions, where we go through a movie musical song by song, judge a movie solely based on the soundtrack that provides. This week is with Whitney Seibold himself. We were going through A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, and you can also find me on YouTube at No Man's Land Entertainment.
And I'm still waiting. Whenever you do Walk the Line.
Walk the Line.
Whenever you do I'm here.
We're going to be getting it.
Yes,
it's gonna be rock.
It's gonna be awesome. Is what it's gonna be. I cannot wait. What about you, Frank Janisch? What do you got to plug? Anything coming up? Anything you want to plug? I mean, next week you got a big match. What's going on?
Yeah, it's a lower level match, but whatever. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at FrankieJ9, and follow me on Instagram because next week I might be utilizing Instagram Live. I'm not gonna say exactly why. But you should follow me on Instagram because you might see some pretty cool. I don't know if it's Schmoedown related, but it's close. So give that a follow.
That's an awful tease. I'm Brad Gilmore. You can follow me on all social media at Brad Gilmore. Check out Booker T and I's show, Heated Conversations, and check out my podcast, Back to the Future of the Podcast. Season 5 is under production now. Should be out here the next couple of months. So check that out if you're a Back to the Future fan such as I. For Frank Janisch, Chris Clark, and our special guest, William the Beast Bibbiani, I am Brad Gilmore. This is the Schmoedown Rundown. Championship week is next week. Get ready, brother, because it's going to be running wild. We will see you then.
Growl, growl.